A man takes the last bus home from work every day. For 3 consecutive days he sees a woman in white with a large suitcase sitting quietly at the bus stop, seemingly waiting for something and continuously tapping the seat with her hand. On the 4th day the man approaches her asking why she remains there since the last bus has already passed and taxis rarely come by. He suggests she call a taxi but she reveals she lost her phone. The man offers his phone which is damaged but still able to make calls, however the woman does not take it and instead asks if he does not recognize her. Thinking she might be unwell mentally, the man bids her goodbye and goes home. On the 5th day it is raining heavily and the woman is still sitting motionless at the bus stop. Seeing her soaked, the man offers his umbrella saying his home is not far and he can run. The woman expresses feeling cold and asks if she can come to his home. Pitying her, the man agrees and takes her home. He gives her a towel to dry off, but when she returns he is terrified to see her nails growing backwards, explaining the tapping sound. Meanwhile the woman opens her suitcase to reveal a row of knives, selecting a pair of scissors. A sudden disturbance occurs in the ICU of a hospital. A man bursts in and nurse Kwon Young-ji asks if he needs help. He inquires about the morgue. Just then an alarm goes off from a patient's ventilator. Kwon Young-ji calls for help and fortunately it is only a dislodged oxygen tube. After it is reconnected the patient stabilizes. When Kwon Young-ji looks back the man has disappeared. A man wraps himself tightly in a blanket in his room, still shivering from the cold. What irritates him more than the cold is a dog that keeps barking. He opens the door and yells for the dog to stop as the noise is driving him to the brink of collapse, but how could a dog understand his words? The man named Young Wen-yong owns a lighting store that only opens at night. The store attracts a variety of customers. Some come specifically to buy bulbs while others just browse and leave. This includes a man asking about the morgue and another continually disturbed by the dog's barking. A woman in wet red heels, and Hugh, a student who must buy a bulb every day after school. Hugh is a regular and knows the store owner well. They often chat before she heads home. One day Hunu tells the owner she might have seen a ghost. It was too dark to see clearly but she's sure it wasn't a normal person. The owner suggests that she might be seeing strangers that others cannot see, who blend into the crowd but have some distinct differences. He advises that if she encounters strange people she should pretend not to see them. After Hunu leaves, the lighting store owner's face appears aged, his true age unknown. As Hyunju reaches her home she sees the white-dressed woman leaving with a heavy suitcase, unaware of the blood dripping from it. On a rainy night, a girl kindly shares her umbrella with a woman without one. As they walk, the girl notices the woman's hair suddenly growing longer and her walk becoming a limp. Hugh recalls the store owner's words about pretending you haven't seen strange people. Yeonju tries to stay calm but the woman beside her keeps growing rapidly. Scared, Yeonju runs to the store to seek help from the owner. The owner tells her to hurry home obediently. Yeonju runs back while the owner simply removes his glasses and glances at the woman, who immediately turns and leaves. In an alley near the lighting store, a writer rents a cheap and quiet house. It suits her needs except for one locked room. Soon after moving in, the lights in the house start to fail repeatedly. The writer initially thinks it's just because the house is old. Additionally, every evening after school a boy loudly singing as he passes by disrupts her concentration. One day, unable to bear it, she opens her window to ask why he always sings so loudly, but the boy runs away scared. The writer finds this odd and decides to take a bath and go to bed. While drying her hair she accidentally sees a strand on the floor that is clearly not hers, chilling her to the bone. The writer goes to the mirror and sees another person in the room through the reflection, or more accurately something that isn't human. The ongoing issue with the light seems to be caused by this entity. Meanwhile the boy in a panic runs to the corner and meets the woman in white dragging a suitcase. Thinking he has found a normal person, he approaches her and explains his desire to go to the lighting store, hoping she will accompany him because the road is too dark and frightening. As they pass the writer's house, the boy tells the woman about the strange encounter with the woman who spoke to him from the window, mentioning how terrifying it was to see another figure behind her.
그것은...
The woman in white wants to knock on the door but the boy quickly grabs her and tells her not to go. Then he notices her nails growing backwards, realizing she is not normal either. Seeing the boy's panic, the woman tells him they are not so different, revealing that his feet also grow backwards. Confused, the boy starts to run away unsteadily. The writer sees something unclean in her room and decides to leave the house quickly, but she can't remember the door code. She takes a hammer to break the door, only managing to shatter the glass and start shouting for help with no response from outside. No matter how far the boy runs, he always ends up back at the writer's door. The woman in white drags her suitcase to the lighting store with blood dripping continuously from it. The owner asks what she needs. Before she can reply, another man arrives claiming to be a police officer in pursuit of a suspect. Blood continuously leaks from the suitcase trailing behind her. Police officer Yang Shang-sik, also in the store, witnesses the scene. Yang Sung-sik calls out to her and the woman in white feels a sudden tightness. Unexpectedly, Yang Shang-sik takes off his raincoat and drapes it over her, mistaking her situation for menstruation. The woman in white leaves the store with her suitcase. Yang Shang-sik turns back to ask the owner if he has seen the suspect he describes. The suspect's eyes are peculiar, reacting to bright light like a cat's. Suddenly Yang Sik's eyes start to uncontrollably rotate. Yang Sik is a very skilled police officer. About a month ago, a woman living alone in an apartment continually heard knocking at her door. Thinking it was a persistent suitor, she yelled that she didn't want to date or have any relationship with him. When the knocking finally stopped, she couldn't resist opening the door. She saw a man squatting at the end of the hallway who quickly approached her, and then something fell. At a bus station, a man stealthily boarded a bus. Hearing the driver announce the imminent departure, he felt relieved. However, just as the bus doors closed, Yang Sik appeared beside the bus. The man had to put on a hat. Yang Song-sik ordered everyone off the bus and the man tried to hide behind the seat, but Yang Sik had already spotted him and slowly approached. Although arrested, the man displayed a disdainful expression which quickly faded when he realized the woman he had killed was also on the bus. Yang Song-sik called nearby colleagues and took the man to the police station. That night, a solitary elderly person was watching TV at home when someone knocked on the door. Soon after, the police received a report that the elderly person had died, initially thought to be from an acute myocardial infarction. However, Yang Song-sik suspected otherwise. The elderly person's face showed no sign of pain, and although right-handed, the remote was on the left side with only the channel button worn. The TV was playing a recorded program. While eating, Yang Song-sik accidentally got sauce on his hand, leading to a realization. The supposed age spot near the elderly person's mouth was actually jjangmyeon sauce. A rectangular mark on the floor likely came from a delivery box of jjangmyeon, indicating someone had visited shortly before the death. Yang Sik began visiting nearby noodle shops and eventually focused on one particular restaurant. This store is strange. It has no delivery app and no phone number on the noodle shop sign, yet the owner often delivers food himself. Yang Sik asked the owner if he was responsible for the elderly man's death, but the owner denied knowing anything about it. Despite lacking evidence, Yang Shanik was sure the owner was involved in the death and kept a close eye on him. One evening, Yang Song-sik caught the owner chasing a woman. He leapt forward and stopped him, restraining the owner and questioning if he planned to continue killing. The owner was surprised and asked how Yang Shang-sik could see the woman. When Yang Sung-sik asked if the woman was hurt, she slowly stood up and turned around. She was the woman who had been killed earlier. The owner then pushed Yang Sung-sik away and tried to flee but was stopped. The two struggled and Yang Sik noticed the owner's eyes had changed color, resembling a cat's. Yang Sik then went to a lighting store. Meanwhile, two critically injured car accident victims arrived at the hospital and the head nurse prepared beds. A woman was arranging clothes for the deceased when the body suddenly made a noise, startling her. She quickly called the mortician, who calmed her by explaining it was just gas escaping the body. To ease her nerves, the mortician suggested she step outside for air. Once she left, the mortician calmly began trimming the deceased's nails and conversed with them. Having been a mortician for many years, he could hear the voices of the dead. He patiently advised the deceased that death was not the end but a journey to a new place. After arranging everything, the mortician placed the deceased in the morgue drawer, telling her to rest there until he could return after completing the procedures. Elsewhere, Kwon Yaji, working the night shift, arrived at the hospital and met an older man in the elevator. She asked which floor he needed and he replied the 8th floor. Kwon Yaji informed him that the 8th floor housed critical patients and was closed to visitors at night. The man then asked if these patients would wake up. Kwon Gang-ji responded that she couldn't guarantee their awakening as it depended on the patient's will. Hearing this, the man began to cry bitterly, his tears flowing more fiercely than a downpour. The water level in the elevator rose rapidly with his sobbing, soon submerging Kwon Young-ji. Fortunately, the elevator reached the 8th floor and as the doors opened, the man and the tears disappeared. After a severe car accident, Kwon Young-ji awoke with the ability to see people invisible to others, eventually realizing these were individuals teetering between life and death. That day, turned home from school to find her mother sitting in the dark living room, silent despite her attempts at conversation. Her mother remained quiet because the mortician had stuffed cotton in her mouth. Her body lay motionless at her funeral, unbeknownst to who knew. Someone stood motionlessly at her doorstep watching her. A woman discovered her nails grew backwards because she wanted to remain forever interlocked with her lover's fingers. It turns out the woman in white didn't intend to kill the man on the bus but to stitch him up and save him. That day the man planned to propose to the woman in white, but she hesitated because she was deaf and mute. The man's mother disapproved of the marriage. Meanwhile, right after getting off the subway, the fiancé hurriedly texted her saying he was about to take a bus to meet her soon. The man boarded the bus and at the same time the eerie figures seen earlier appeared again, having previously shared the same bus ride. Unexpectedly the bus malfunctioned and was involved in a severe accident. The woman heading to meet her fiancé witnessed the scene and quickly dialed 119, but as a deaf mute she couldn't report the emergency. Soon the injured were rushed to the hospital. The fiancé's spine was completely broken and the driver was barely alive. When the woman arrived at the hospital, her fiancé was near death. To her distress, the mother blamed her for her son's imminent death. The woman burst into tears, but just then she received a message from the father saying her son was still alive. Tragically, by then the woman had already hanged herself. When she saw the message, it was too late. In life, the woman was a deaf-mute girl who always waited for her boyfriend at the familiar platform. They communicated by touching objects, and even after her death she continued to tap on chairs with her nails so her boyfriend would recognize her. That night she met the man she longed for at the platform, but he seemed to have completely forgotten her. However, just a few steps away he suddenly fell. In reality, special cleaners arrived at the woman's house just as they prepared to tidy up. A strange noise came from inside. Thinking it was a hallucination, they listened closely and heard a clear sound. The cleaners urged their colleagues to leave quickly, suspecting that the deceased might still be in the house. Indeed, the woman was in the room stitching up her boyfriend, who slowly got up. The next day the boyfriend met the woman again at the platform. Despite her tapping on the chair, he did not recognize her. Soon after, he fell again. The woman then took him to a cinema. A girl noticed something odd, but when she got up to leave they had vanished. Meanwhile, the woman continued to stitch up her boyfriend, hoping to revive him by repeatedly exerting all her strength. Just as the girl entered the elevator, she saw a blood-covered man and ran in panic, but the man relentlessly followed her. It turned out he was the neighbor next door. Relieved, the girl relaxed, but then he suddenly stopped her to ask when she had moved in, as he couldn't remember anything from before. As the girl was about to answer, the man's body suddenly bent in half. Terrified, she quickly hid at home and peeked through the door crack. Her mother pulled her away, and when the daughter asked why her mother's recent behavior seemed odd, her mother asked her to continue buying light bulbs. The daughter complained about her mother's lack of care, feeling isolated with no friends or classmates to talk to. Meanwhile, the mother felt helpless, not knowing how to explain the truth to her daughter. That night, Yang Shangshik, a former excellent detective, discovered his broken lighter suddenly working again. His wife was 4 months pregnant but her belly wasn't showing, which the doctor explained was due to a miscarriage. The news deeply saddened him, especially since he had already chosen a name for the child. He apologized to his wife for his constant absence due to work. Since his death and arrival in this alley, he realized he couldn't leave and it was perpetually night here with frequent unexplained falls. He hurried to a lighting store, questioning his surroundings for the first time. The store owner, silent, just removed his glasses, revealing cat-like eyes. It turned out the alley near the lighting store was actually the river Styx, and the owner was the ferryman of souls. The store owner explained this is the afterlife world. People who are unable to live their entire lives due to unfortunate accidents will continue their lives in this place. People like the detective who are not yet dead still have a chance to return to the normal world, but he should not perceive the anomalies of this world because once he perceives it, he will remember. Those who want to go back cannot leave with memories of this place, otherwise the two worlds will become confused. The detective will be unable to distinguish between space and time. One Yang is the ferryman guarding the boundary.
Nice.
The scene shifts back to the normal world in the intensive care unit of the hospital. A new nurse has been assigned, and Young Ji as a senior is helping her get familiar with the job. One of the most important tasks is to understand the patient conditions, whether it's their medical history or treatment status, and why the patients were admitted to the ICU. They meet the uncle with bangs who has been looking for his dog, who was the first patient admitted to the ICU. However, he was not a victim of the bus accident. In the city, there was another accident that day. The uncle with bangs is named Zhang Bingyan, and on the day of the incident he got lost in the mountains and stumbled. With the sudden downpour, John Bingen fell into a coma due to the cold temperature. Fortunately, a rescue dog lay on him, helping to maintain his body temperature, which is why he didn't lose his vital signs. Those rescue dogs are rigorously trained, and once they find a search target, they won't leave. They only notify others by barking continuously. The rescue dog was struck by a branch, yet it didn't abandon its mission and leave. By the time the rescuers arrived, the rescue dog had already passed away. It entered the afterlife world together with the unconscious Jang Bingen. That's why Jang Bingen always feels cold and he constantly hears the barking that others cannot hear, because the rescue dog was doing its utmost to save him. At this moment, Jang Bingen chased the dog into a dark alley. He finally saw that it was a rescue dog, and some vague memories began to awaken. Jang Bingen hugged it tightly, continuously apologizing, but the rescue dog barked a few times to signal for Jang Bingen to keep moving forward, and together they headed towards the lighting store. Young Ji continued to introduce the next patient, Yeonju, to the new nurse. She suffered a head injury from a car accident, resulting in a subdural hemorrhage. Although there were no visible external injuries, the mortality rate was very high. The new nurse found it strange that such a severe fall accident could leave the patient with no external wounds at all. Young Ji explained that on the day of the accident, Yeonju was with her mother, and it was likely that her mother fought desperately to protect her. Unfortunately, they couldn't avoid the impact of the fall, and Yu's mother, Shang Wei, had already died. She was to be buried the following morning. At this time, her soul remained by Yu's side, and every night she urged her daughter to buy light bulbs. She hoped that Yu would find her own lamp and awaken. In addition, Vuan, who died protecting Shan He, was also about to be prepared for burial. Fortunately, the two had already recognized each other in the afterlife. Though Shan was trapped in the house, she didn't feel scared at all. Vuan asked her if she didn't think the house was dark, saying you can go out to buy a light bulb. Huan actually wanted Shan He to awaken, but the latter replied that she couldn't open the password lock. Huan had to awaken the dreamer, saying the door is open, you can go out anytime. Young Ji's introductions were still ongoing. When it was time for Zhang, the new nurse noticed a basketball under the bed, which was returned by the boy they had saved. Young Ji placed the ball back under Zhang's bed, hoping to cheer him on. Just as she finished speaking, a car accident patient emerged from a coma and he was to be taken to the morgue on the third basement level. Although his face was covered with a white cloth, the dialogue between the morticians suggested the deceased was likely the bus driver, Mr. Wu. It was the new nurse's first experience with such a situation, and she felt quite uncomfortable. Young Ji comforted her, saying not to be sad, as many people never even made it to this place. They are the guardians of the boundary between life and death, and they can only do their best. Young Ji believed that no matter which world they are in, they will find their final peace. At this moment, Mr. Wu had entered the dark alley, and a basketball rolled by. He chased after the ball and found Zhang, recognizing that this was one of his passengers. So he bent down and carried Zhang on his back. In fact, Mr. Wu had been searching for the wandering passengers, wanting to lead them to the lighting store as a way to atone for the accident. Zhang said that the place they had just encountered was also holding a sister who seemed to be trapped in a house, unable to come out. Mr. Wu turned to take a look and decided to first take Zhang to the store. Meanwhile, the conversation between Wan Yang and the detective was still ongoing. The detective said he could no longer hear the sound of the motorcycle. The noodle shop owner was just like Wan Yang, and he also had a pair of golden vertical pupils. The detective had been following the sound of his motorcycle, which led him near the lighting store. Once he moved away from this place, the sound of the motorcycle would reappear. So it turns out that it was indeed the noodle shop owner who led him to the lighting store. Wan Yang asked the detective, "So do you still want to continue chasing him?" Hearing this, the detective flicked his lighter. "Yeah, I have found my own light." The moment the lighter lit up, the detective awakened from his hospital bed. While Jang Bingen followed the rescue dog to the store, he also found his light. Meanwhile, Mr. Wu carried Zhang to the entrance of the store, urging him to quickly find his own light. From now on, everything would depend on Zhang's will. Before leaving, Mr. Wu had one more thing he wanted to say. Zhang walked into the store under Mr. Wu's gaze, and he successfully found the light. Mr. Wu returned to the alley to save Shan He, where he found the house Zhang mentioned. He wanted to try to climb over the wall, but unexpectedly Vuan opened the window. Mr. W truly regretted it, knowing full well that there was a problem with the brakes, but he wanted to save on repair costs. If he had prioritized the lives of his passengers at that time, this tragedy would not have occurred. Mr. Wu explained that he wanted to find the living people and bring them to the lighting store. Vuan remembered that when she was with you, the girl mentioned that she lived in the Wish Tower, so she told Mr. Wu to check there. As for Shan He, Huan would personally take her to the store. Mr. Wu, supporting his weary body, arrived near the tower and he happened to run into Yu's mother. The latter had cotton stuffed in her mouth and couldn't speak, and she could only gesture to guide Mr. Wu. Then she went to the lighting store alone. She stuffed the necklace engraved with her daughter's name into Wan Yang's hands, wanting to take the light bulb for you. Wan Yang explained that she had to come in person. Upon hearing this, Yu's mother sobbed and pleaded, and her emotions were about to spiral out of control. Wan Yang had to take off her glasses, revealing her vertical pupils, and Yu's mother indeed quieted down upon seeing this. At this moment, she caught sight of the box where Wan Yang kept candy wrappers, and she suddenly became very excited. Yu's mother gestured, though it was unclear what she wanted to convey. She unwrapped a piece of candy and stuffed it into Wan Yang's mouth, and the familiar action and taste instantly reminded Wan Yang of her daughter. It turned out that Jiang Wei was the girl trapped under the rubble. Wan Yang is willing to sacrifice her freedom to save her daughter. On the other side, Yanju finally stopped sulking and walked out of her bedroom, but her mother was nowhere to be found. She was about to go out to look for her when you saw Mr. Wu at the apartment entrance. She had encountered too many strange things lately, and she wanted to pretend not to see him and leave directly. Mr. Wu suddenly spoke up, "I have something to convey on behalf of your mother. Can you let me finish?" Just as he finished speaking, Mr. Wu suddenly spat out seawater, and Yanju jumped in shock, wanting to seek help from a passerby. But the lady directly ignored her. Mr. Wu explained, "She can't see us. Think about it carefully. Once you realize the problem, you'll understand." Yanju couldn't help but recall her teachers and classmates who could never hear her speak. Even the security guard by the roadside would ignore her greetings. At the moment you realize the problem, blood suddenly surged from her nostrils. Mr. Wu had reached his limit, and he couldn't personally take her to the lighting store. He urged you to say goodbye to her mother and to go to the store to find the light bulb and leave this world. You returned to the apartment to wait for her mother to come home, and before long her mother returned with the light bulb. But you didn't want to take it. Jiang Wei couldn't say a word, and she could only desperately stuff the light bulb into her daughter's arms. She still had a bright future and a father waiting outside. How could she stay in a place like this? The light bulb emitted a warm glow. Mr. Wu, seeing this scene, closed his eyes wearily. Meanwhile, Shan He was also ready to leave the house and walked out under Huan's watchful gaze. As soon as they were out of each other's sight, Shan's tears instantly gushed forth. She quickly reached the lighting store at the end of the alley and recognized her own light bulb. The hospital nurse noticed signs of awakening in Shan Ha and hurriedly called the attending physician, but Shan Ha had already made her decision and she smashed the lamp, wanting to stay in the company of Huan. No matter which world they lived in, two people are always better than one. Wherever Huan was, that was Shan Ha's home. The ICU nurse was very frustrated, as Shan Ha was clearly about to regain consciousness. Why did she suddenly die? Young Ji comforted her, perhaps it was a moment of light before death. The deceased must have seen the light at that moment. At the same time, the morticians still couldn't open the cold storage where the body was kept. They could wait no longer. Even if they had to break the cold storage door, they needed to quickly prepare the deceased for burial. It had already taken too long. For the deceased, Zhang brought Ajun back to the scene of the incident once again, stitching up his broken waist. But Zhang no longer had time. The next day she stepped into the middle of the road to stop a bus. Then Zhang walked straight to Aun inside the bus, demanding to know why he couldn't remember her. When the bus arrived at the station, everyone else was getting ready to disembark, but not a single person looked their way. Aun was very confused, and Zhang cried, "They can't see us." After saying this, she tore open Aun's shirt, revealing the black stitches. She desperately questioned, "When will you remember?" After seeing the wound, he finally realized that something was wrong with this world. Then memories returned to him, and the two returned together to Ji Young's studio. Although they had just recognized each other, it was already time to part ways. Zhang instructed Aun to go to the lighting store and tell the owner that you need something. Then look for the light bulb that glows when you approach it. Only then can you awaken. The two parted ways at the end of the alley, and Ajun walked alone toward the lighting store. Wan Yang reminded him not to touch anything randomly, but Aun began to fumble around the store carelessly. Just as she finished speaking, Aun discovered a faint light. By the time Zhang saw the warm light and ran over, Ajun had already vanished from the room. She could only turn around and return to the dark alley. Aoun's condition seemed different from the other comatose patients, which should be a clue laid down by the director. Time quickly moved forward to 3 months later. GY was fully recovered and ready to be discharged. His delirium symptoms were also about to improve, though he occasionally confused where he was. Young G came over to give Zhang a discharge gift, and this silly boy said something about seeing each other next time. Young G told him not to talk nonsense. What meeting do you want to get hurt again? From now on, we should not meet again. Zhang felt inexplicably that this phrase was familiar, as if someone had said it to him before. What Young Ji said was likely what Mr. Wu had said, and now he continued his work in another world. Meanwhile, Shan he had been living with Juan, and Yanju was slowly recovering with her father's companionship. She intentionally didn't accept treatment for her delirium in order to remember her mother. Fortunately, Aunt Wei was not alone, as she had found her father. She also adopted the rescue dog Max, and the three of them guarded the lighting store, guiding the wandering and lost souls. But the story does not end here. Do you remember the unsolved case photo posted on the detective's desk? The missing victim Park Shanu has come before you. They had met in the afterlife, and Shanu had no friends wherever she went, except for you who had greeted her. As the scene shifted, the detective arrived at the noodle shop and met with the owner Kim Sang-hun. He had already learned the details from the doctor that a car accident occurred while he was pursuing Kim Sang-hun. In a critical moment, Sang-hun instinctively shielded him, but he was struck and killed by a truck. Fortunately, the detective had the ability to see spirits, so he could still see Sang-hun's soul. Thus he specifically came to the noodle shop to thank him. Kim Sang-hun replied that there was no need to thank him, I was just doing my job. In fact, Songgu was also a guide, which is why he had cat-like eyes. His job was to escort those who couldn't remain in the living world to the afterlife. That was why he pursued the woman who died in the fire. As for the elderly man living alone, it was simply because no one cared for him, and he couldn't go out due to his mobility issues. He was close to starving. Kim Sang-hun wanted to feed the old man a bowl of noodles before he died, which is why the detective noticed something was wrong. Now Sang-hun had to leave this world, but there was no one to take his place as a guide. The detective was not only observant, but he also had the ability to see ghosts, making him the best candidate to be the new guide. Kim Sang-gun asked if he was willing to accept this job, and since the detective was best at handling unsolved cases, he would naturally not decline this good opportunity. He took the sunglasses and left the noodle shop, only to find that he had work to do right after taking the position. Do you remember the day of the bus accident when a man with chest pain sought Young Ji's help? Due to the high number of casualties and a shortage of personnel, Young Ji couldn't attend to him. As a result, the man harbored resentment after his death, and he came back specifically to seek revenge on Young Ji. In a critical moment, the detective arrived just in time, and he was responsible for taking the man back to the afterlife. On the other side, unlike the other patients who had returned to normal, Aoun's delirium symptoms were becoming more severe. Moreover, others said that his girlfriend had died, but Ajun couldn't remember anyone named Zhang at all. The doctor suggested that he organize his environment. Since you don't want to remember painful things, then let go of unnecessary items and people, forget everything and start anew. After leaving the hospital, he wheeled himself to the accident scene. He took out his phone that contained Zhang's messages, and he made up his mind to throw it into the sea. Aoun decided to look forward from now on. 3 months ago, when the mortician was preparing Zhang's remains, the woman couldn't help but ask, "Why did he forget me?" Others, even in that place, still remembered each other. "Does that mean he doesn't love me?" The mortician was about to trim the deceased's nails when he noticed that even in this world, Zhang's nails were still growing from her fingertips. She was different from the other deceased, as her regrets and obsessions had not dissipated. That night when Ajun returned home, the lights in the hallway suddenly went out. He waved his hand, trying to get the smart light to turn back on. The hallway lights flickered on one by one, and Zhang appeared again by Ajun's side, just as she had texted before her death, "I will go to the place where you are." In the post-credit scene, the detective returned to the police station and placed Shu's photo and file into a drawer. He then began investigating the collapse of the high school building, which was the school of the youth group. In the evening, the detective arrived in front of that building where he encountered the time-stopping superpower user. This could be considered as a linkage of the supernatural universe. The story for this season comes to an end here. The series demonstrates that death is not an end but a transition, love persists beyond physical existence, and the will to live, represented by those precious light bulbs, remains humanity's most powerful force against the darkness of despair and oblivion.